All right, estimating square roots and irrational numbers. An irrational number is the square root of an imperfect square. So all of these are irrational numbers. If it's the square root of, say, 9, because that equals a whole number, that's a rational number. But we are dealing with irrational numbers. And I was telling you for the last lesson that you could leave it just like this for the answer. Today they're actually wanting you to find out what this is, estimating it. The good news is they're just kind of wanting you to say between which numbers is each of these square roots. So if I have the square root of 7, that is not a perfect square, but I look at the number that I know that's closest to it that is a perfect square, which is 9. That's the one above, and then the one below is the square root of 4. So that means the square root of 7 is between 2 and 3. That's all you're doing when you're estimating on this lesson for square roots, is finding between which two whole numbers would it be. So 7 was 2 and 3, the square root of 70 would be below 81. And if we know that it's below 81, and that's 9, the next one has to be 8 squared, so that it'll be between 8 and 9. Because it always has to be consecutive numbers. It can't be 8 and 10 or 5 and 9. It needs to be consecutive numbers. So square root of 70 is between 8 and 9. And you may want to get a square root chart. You can find a lot of those online that just list all the square roots of perfect squares. Or you can make your own list and just start doing 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 4, 3 squared is 9. But that way you can memorize a lot of these, especially up to like 15. And then when you get to really high numbers, I mean, if you have a square root table or a squared number table, these can be easy because sometimes they go up to that. If you don't know, you have to use what you do know and say, all right, what number do I know of that would be this much? Well, I know that 20 squared is 400, and I know that 30 squared is 900, because I just know that the 3 squared is 9, and so on and so forth. So I know this is somewhere between 20 and 30. And this is probably a little bit more than halfway to 90 or 900. So I can estimate and say, I'm going to probably start at 25 and see what 25 times 25 is, which I actually know what this one is. It's 625. But if we were trying to work it out, so that's 2, so 125, 0, 0, so 625. So 625, which is close to that. So that means the square root of 625, 25 is here. And if we know that's just below, we don't even have to do the next one to figure out that the next highest one would be 26. We can do it just to make sure, but you don't even have to go through and do that to see. I think I didn't add the one here. So 625 and 776, which would put this between 25 and 26. So that's how you would estimate a big number like 700. Again, if you have the square root table, you can probably just look at that. But some of these you're going to want to memorize because you have to use them, and it's a lot quicker than having to have it. Now, sometimes they're going to have you use the Pythagorean theorem like we did yesterday. So in this case, we have 1 squared and 1 squared. A is 1, B is 1. Because we are solving for C, we add them. So 1 plus 1 is 2. And then after we get that, we find the square root of 2. The square root of 2 would be in between 1 and 2. Because square root of 1 is 1, the square root of 4 is 2. This is in between those. So that's all you would do if it was a number like this. if they give you the triangle and then ask you to solve. Now, if they ask you to do, solve for C, so this is 9, and we'll make B 4, because we're solving for one of the legs, we are subtracting, so we square the numbers, 81 minus 16, which would be 65. Yeah, 65. So square root of 65 is in between 8, because that's 64, and 9. And so your answer to that one would be between 8 and 9. And that's all you're doing for S.